I was folding laundry in my bedroom when my granddaughter Olivia appeared in the doorway, holding her phone with both hands like it was something fragile. She was 13, visiting from Vancouver for spring break, and the look on her face made my chest tighten. She glanced over her shoulder toward the kitchen where Natalie was preparing dinner, then crossed the room in 3 quick steps and pressed her phone into my hands. On the screen was a text message she'd typed but not sent. "Grandpa, I need you to check Grandma's safety deposit box at the credit union. Box 891. Before Wednesday. Trust me. Delete this after reading." My hands started shaking. I'd lost my wife, Helen, 7 months earlier. One minute she was deadheading roses in our garden here in Victoria. The next minute she was on the floor of our sunroom, gone before the ambulance arrived. The doctors called it a massive stroke. She was 66. We'd been married 43 years. I'm Douglas Fletcher. I spent 37 years as a civil engineer with the provincial government, designing water treatment facilities across British Columbia. I retired at 67, 2 years ago, looking forward to traveling with Helen, maybe spending winters somewhere warm. We just booked a cruise to Alaska for that summer. She never got to go. After Helen died, I moved through the house like a ghost. Our daughter Rebecca lives in Vancouver with her husband and Olivia. She came down for 2 weeks after the funeral, but she's a pediatric nurse practitioner with a full patient load. She couldn't stay forever. By October, I was alone in our 4-bedroom house in Oak Bay, eating frozen dinners and forgetting what day it was. The grief counselor at our church, St. Andrew's Presbyterian, suggested their support group. That's where I met Natalie Warren in November. She was 41, a professional counselor who volunteered with the program. Soft-spoken, organized, always dressed in calming colors like sage green and dove gray. She had this way of asking questions that made you feel heard. Within 3 weeks, she was stopping by my house twice a week, just to check on me. By December, she was helping me sort through Helen's belongings, a task I couldn't face alone. By January, she'd moved from helpful to essential. She organized my medications, helped me file insurance paperwork, accompanied me to lawyer appointments about the estate. She made casseroles. She brought herbal tea that she said would help me sleep. She knew which bills needed paying when. I was grateful. Rebecca was relieved. Everyone at church said how lucky I was to have such dedicated support. But there were small things, tiny things I told myself didn't matter. Helen took her tea with honey and lemon. I'd made it for her 10,000 times. Natalie made me tea the same way without me ever telling her how Helen liked it. When I mentioned it, she said she'd noticed the honey pot by the kettle. Reasonable. Helen kept our important documents in a wooden filing cabinet in my study. After she died, I noticed things had been moved, papers in different folders. Natalie said she'd been helping me organize. Reasonable. My friend Gordon from the yacht club called in February to ask if I was selling my boat. I wasn't. He said someone had listed it on a marine classified site. I checked, and there it was. My 1,987, Catalina 30. Posted for sale 3 days earlier with my phone number. I took the listing down and changed my passwords. Natalie suggested maybe my email had been hacked. Reasonable. By March, Rebecca was worried enough to send Olivia down for spring break, just to spend time with Grandpa, she said. But I heard the unspoken part. Olivia arrived on a Friday afternoon. She's quiet like her mother, observant. She settled into her usual guest room and didn't say much over dinner. Natalie had made roast chicken with vegetables, setting the table like she lived here. Olivia watched her move around our kitchen with practiced familiarity. That first night, after Natalie left around 9, Olivia sat with me in the living room. "Grandpa, did Grandma usually keep Tylenol in the bathroom cabinet?" "Your grandma didn't take Tylenol. She got stomach aches from it." Olivia nodded slowly. "There's a big bottle in there now, and some other stuff. Herbal supplements. Natalie brings those. She says they'll help with my blood pressure. Are you taking them?" "Sometimes. They taste strange, so I forget." Olivia was quiet for a long moment, staring at the framed photo of Helen on the mantel. Then she said goodnight and went upstairs. The next day was Saturday. Natalie came over mid-morning with groceries and a new casserole dish. She stayed for lunch, chatting about the church fundraiser, her sister's upcoming visit, a documentary she'd watched. Normal conversation. Comfortable. Around 2 o'clock, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, excused herself, and stepped out onto the back patio to take the call. I was clearing lunch dishes. Olivia had been upstairs in her room, supposedly doing homework, but she must have come downstairs without me noticing, because suddenly she was beside me at the sink, gripping my arm. "Grandpa," she whispered. "The patio door is cracked open." I could hear her. "Hear what?" She said, "Phase 2 starts Tuesday, and the paperwork is almost ready, and after Wednesday, it's locked in." My stomach dropped. Maybe it was about a client. Then she said your name. She said Douglas signs on Wednesday. Then we move everything before the daughter notices. Olivia's eyes were huge. "Grandpa, what paperwork are you signing on Wednesday?" I tried to remember. "The power of attorney documents, I think. So Natalie can help manage things if I get sick." "Don't sign them." "Olivia." "Grandpa, please." "Something's wrong. I can feel it." She sounded so much like Helen in that moment. Helen had always trusted her gut. When I wanted to invest in a supposedly foolproof development deal in 2008, Helen said it felt off. We didn't invest. The developer went bankrupt 6 months later. "Okay," I said. "I won't sign anything Wednesday." Olivia relaxed slightly, then tensed again. "There's something else. I saw Natalie go into your study yesterday while you were napping. She was in there for 20 minutes. When she came out, she had her phone up like she'd been taking pictures. That night, after Natalie left, I went into my study. The filing cabinet looked undisturbed, but when I checked Helen's important documents folder, things were definitely rearranged. My marriage certificate was near the bottom when it should have been near the top. Helen's death certificate had a coffee ring on it that hadn't been there before, and my own birth certificate had a sticky note attached with a page number and arrow drawn in handwriting I didn't recognize. Not mine, not Helen's. I thought about Helen's safety deposit box. We'd opened it together 30 years ago at the credit union downtown. We kept our original house deed in there, the pink slip from my boat, some of Helen's mother's jewelry, and our wills. Helen had updated her will after her mother died in 2019. I hadn't looked at mine since we first wrote them in 1998. Box 891. I realized I didn't know where the key was. Helen had always kept it. I went upstairs to her jewelry box. The logical place. Not there. I checked my sock drawer, the kitchen junk drawer, my wallet. Nothing. Then I remembered. Helen loved books. She had a collection of first editions in the built-in shelves in our bedroom. Her favorite was a 1952 edition of The Old Man and the Sea by Hemingway. She'd inherited it from her father. I pulled it off the shelf. It was heavier than it should have been. Someone had hollowed out the center pages, creating a small cavity. Inside was a key on a simple ring, and a piece of paper folded in half. I unfolded it with trembling hands. Helen's handwriting. Dated 2 days before she died, March 14th, 2025. "Doug, if you're reading this, something happened to me. I don't think my dizzy spells are from blood pressure. I think it's the supplements Natalie brings. I feel worse after taking them, not better. I tried to tell you yesterday, but you said I was being paranoid. Maybe I am. But I'm hiding our safety deposit key here just in case. Check the box if anything happens. Check the will. I love you. Trust your gut like I taught you. H." I sat down hard on the edge of the bed. The room tilted. Helen had tried to warn me, and I'd dismissed her. I'd told my wife of 43 years that she was being paranoid, and 3 days later she was dead. My throat closed up. My vision blurred. I couldn't breathe properly. Olivia found me like that 10 minutes later. She sat beside me, took the note from my shaking hands, read it. Then she wrapped her skinny 13-year-old arms around me and held on while I cried harder than I had since the funeral. When I could talk again, I said, "We need to check that box." "Monday," Olivia said. "The credit union is closed tomorrow. We go first thing Monday morning." What do I tell Natalie? Nothing. Act normal. Don't sign anything. Don't eat or drink anything she brings. And Grandpa? We need to call Mom. Rebecca answered on the second ring. When Olivia explained, there was a long pause. Then, "Pack a bag, Dad. After you check the box Monday, you're coming to Vancouver." Rebecca. "No arguments. I'm driving down Monday afternoon. Whatever's in that box, we deal with it. Then you leave with me." That night I barely slept. Every creak of the house settling made me jump. I kept thinking about Helen's note, the dizzy spells, the supplements, the massive stroke that killed her in seconds. Natalie came by Sunday after church. letting herself in with the key I'd given her in January. She'd brought fresh scones from the bakery. "For you and Olivia," she said warmly. We sat in the kitchen. She asked about our plans for the week. I said we were thinking of going to the Royal BC Museum. She said she'd love to join us. Normal conversation, but I watched how she moved around my kitchen like she owned it, how she opened the fridge to put away milk without asking where things went, how she glanced at the mail on the counter and picked up an envelope from my lawyer's office, studying it before setting it down. "Your estate planning documents came," she said. "Should we schedule that signing appointment for Wednesday? Get it all finalized?" "Maybe Thursday," I said. "I'm feeling a bit off this week." Something flickered across her face, too fast to read. "Of course, no rush. As long as we get it done before Rebecca comes down and starts asking questions." She smiled. "You know how daughters can be." After she left, Olivia said, "She has a key to the house? I gave it to her months ago." "Grandpa, we need to change the locks." Monday morning arrived with March rain, typical for Victoria. The credit union opened at 9. Olivia and I were there at 9 too, rain dripping off our umbrellas. The woman at the desk recognized me. "Mr. Fletcher, I'm so sorry about Helen. We all loved her here." "Thank you, Susan. I need to access our safety deposit box." She pulled up my account, verified my ID, and led us to the vault. Box 891 was near the bottom. She used the bank's key and I used Helen's, turning them simultaneously. The long metal box slid out. Susan left us alone in the small viewing room with a table and 2 chairs. I opened the lid. On top was a manila envelope with Douglas, read first written in Helen's handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a letter, dated March 15th, 2025, the day Helen died. "My darling Doug, I'm writing this at the kitchen table while you're at your dentist appointment, and Natalie thinks I'm napping. I'm not paranoid. I'm not confused. Something is very wrong. 3 weeks ago, I found documents in your study that I didn't recognize. A will with my signature, leaving 60% of my estate to primary caregiver Natalie Warren. I never signed that. I checked my real will in this box. It's still here, unchanged. Someone forged my signature. I found power of attorney documents with your signature, giving Natalie control of your finances if you're incapacitated. Did you sign those? I don't think you did. The signature looks right, but you would have told me. I started feeling sick in January, right after Natalie began bringing those supplements. She's very insistent that I take them. Dizzy spells, confusion, blood pressure dropping. Dr. Patterson couldn't explain it. I stopped taking the supplements last week, and I'm starting to feel better. But I took one yesterday to test my theory, and within 3 hours I was dizzy again, seeing double, my heart racing. Doug, I think she's poisoning us both, slowly, making it look like natural decline in elderly people. You're 69. I'm 66. Who would question it? I've been researching her. Natalie Warren isn't her real name. I found her on Facebook under Nicole Westwood, with photos from 2019. Same face. That account mentions living in Alberta and working in estate management. I found obituaries. 3 elderly widowers in Calgary and Edmonton died between 2020 and 2023 within months of listing her as a caregiver or friend. All left substantial amounts to her. One daughter contested the will, but there wasn't enough evidence. She's done this before. She's doing it to you now. She tried to do it to me, but I stopped taking the supplements. In this box, under this letter, you'll find our real wills, unchanged, from 2019. The forged will with my fake signature. Power of attorney documents with what I think is your forged signature. Photos I took of Natalie's real driver's license when she left her purse in our kitchen last week. Her legal name is Nicole Margaret Westwood. She has a P.O. box in Duncan, BC. Not the Victoria address she told you. Screenshots of the Facebook profile before she blocked me. My research on the 3 dead men in Alberta. A bottle of the supplements with 1 pill remaining. I'm keeping this as evidence. If you're reading this and I'm still alive, we need to go to the police. If I'm dead, I'm so sorry I didn't act faster. I thought I had more time. I thought I could gather more proof. Please take this to the RCMP. Make them investigate my death. Test for poison. Don't let her do this to you. I love you more than all the stars in the sky. Just like I told you on our wedding day. You're Helen. I couldn't see the rest of the letter through my tears. Olivia was crying too. We sat there for 5 minutes, just holding each other and sobbing. Then I made myself look at the rest of the box's contents. Helen had documented everything. The forged will was there, a nearly perfect copy of Helen's signature that I wouldn't have questioned if Helen hadn't told me it was fake. The power of attorney documents bore my signature, except I'd never seen them before. The handwriting was so close to mine that I had to compare it to my credit union signature card 3 times to see the tiny differences. The G in Douglas had a slightly different tail. The R in Fletcher was a hair too tall. The photos of Natalie's license showed her real name. Date of birth, the 3rd of April 1984. Address in Duncan, a small city an hour north. The Facebook screenshots showed Nicole Westwood in photos with an elderly man identified as helping Harold with his garden. Harold's obituary was paperclipped to it. Harold Peterson, 78, died suddenly in Edmonton in October 2021, left estate to caregiver. There were 2 more obituaries. Kenneth Martinez, 81, Calgary, February 2022. Douglas Harding, 77, Edmonton, September 2023. Both mentioned a caregiver named Nicole or Natalie. Both died suddenly. Both left significant bequests to their caregiver. And at the bottom of the box was a prescription bottle labeled Heart Health Herbal Supplement. Natalie Warren, certified herbalist. 2 pills rattled inside. I took photos of everything with my phone. Olivia did too. Then I carefully repacked the box, except for the letter, which I folded into my jacket pocket. "We need to call the police," Olivia said. "I know, but I want to talk to your mother first. She's a medical professional. She'll know what questions to ask." We drove home in silence. Rebecca called as I pulled into the driveway. I told her everything, reading Helen's letter out loud while my voice broke. When I finished, there was a long pause. "Dad, you need to call the RCMP right now. She's already killed 4 people, maybe more. And if Helen was right about the supplements, I know. I'm calling them as soon as we hang up. I'm leaving Vancouver in 10 minutes. I'll be there by noon. Do not let Natalie in the house. Do not eat or drink anything. Do you understand?" "Yes." "Put Olivia on." I handed the phone to my granddaughter. I heard Rebecca's voice, muffled but urgent. Olivia said yes. Mom 5 times, then hung up. She said to pack your medications so we can verify what you're actually taking, and to check the house for anything Natalie might have left or planted. We spent the next hour going through my house like investigators. In the bathroom cabinet, we found the large bottle of Tylenol that Helen never took. Behind it was a bottle of my blood pressure medication, except when I compared it to my prescription from Shoppers Drug Mart, the pills looked different. Same label, different pills. Someone had replaced them. In the kitchen, we found Natalie's herbal supplements in 4 different bottles. Sleep aid, joint support, memory enhancement, heart health. I'd been taking them sporadically since January, mostly when Natalie reminded me. In my study, I noticed my laptop was open. I always closed it. I checked the browsing history. Someone had accessed my online banking 3 days ago at 3:47 p.m. I'd been at the grocery store. The history showed they'd looked at my accounts, my recent transactions, and my list of automatic payments. They'd also accessed a PDF of my will that my lawyer had sent me for review. We found a small notebook in the kitchen junk drawer, hidden under takeout menus. Natalie's handwriting. It was a log. Dates and times and notes. Jan 15. DF took evening supplements. Mentioned dizziness next morning. Jan 23. HF very suspicious. Watched me make tea. Feb 2. DF signed papers but confused about details. Good sign. Feb 14. HF stopped taking supplements. Problem. Need new approach. Feb 28. HF deceased. Stroke. No autopsy. Next phase. She'd logged my wife's death like a business transaction. I called the RCMP detachment. The officer who answered took my information and said someone would call me back within the hour. I said it was urgent, that I had evidence of multiple murders. She said a detective would contact me shortly. 45 minutes later, Detective Sarah Morrison called. I explained everything, reading portions of Helen's letter, describing what we'd found. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "Mr. Fletcher, I'm going to come to your house right now with another detective. Don't touch anything else. Don't let anyone else into the house. If Natalie Warren or Nicole Westwood contacts you, don't tell her about this conversation. Can you do that? Yes. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She arrived in 18 minutes with Detective James Kowalski. They were both in plain clothes, both deadly serious. We sat in my living room and I showed them everything. Helen's letter. The contents of the safety deposit box, photographed but returned to the bank. The supplements. The fake medication. The notebook. My laptop history. Detective Morrison photographed everything. Detective Kowalski took my statement, then Olivia's. They bagged the supplements and the medication bottle as evidence. Mr. Fletcher, Detective Morrison said, how well did you know Helen before you married her? We met in university. We dated for 3 years before getting married. Why? I need to ask a difficult question. Is there any possibility Helen wrote this letter but wasn't thinking clearly? That she imagined this threat? I looked at her steadily. My wife was a retired chemistry teacher. She was sharp until the day she died, and she died exactly the way this letter predicted she might. So no, Detective, she wasn't imagining anything. Detective Kowalski pulled up something on his tablet. Nicole Margaret Westwood, born 1,984 inches Kamloops. Previous addresses in Calgary, Edmonton, Red Deer, and Duncan. No criminal record, but she's been named in 2 civil suits related to estate disputes, both settled quietly. We had a file on her in Edmonton but couldn't prove anything. So you knew she was dangerous? We suspected. But suspicion isn't evidence. You've given us evidence. He looked at Detective Morrison. We need to move fast. If she realizes he's onto her, she'll run. They made a plan. I would text Natalie and say I wasn't feeling well, that we'd need to postpone Wednesday's signing until next week, normal enough not to raise alarms. They'd use the next 2 days to build their case, get warrants, bring in toxicology experts to test the supplements. Then they'd bring her in for questioning. What about Helen's autopsy? I asked. Can you test for poison? We'll petition for an exhumation order, Detective Morrison said gently. But that takes time. For now, the evidence in this notebook and her own pattern of behavior is strong. The bottle of supplements with Helen's research notes is particularly compelling. Rebecca arrived while the detectives were still there. She hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe. Then she turned to the detectives. I'm a nurse practitioner. I want to see the medication bottles and the supplements. They showed her. She examined each one carefully, holding the pills up to the light. These aren't atorvastatin, she said, pointing to my supposed blood pressure medication. Wrong size, wrong color. These look like a generic blood pressure medication, but at a much higher dose. If he'd taken these consistently, he'd have dangerous hypotension, dizziness, falls, potential stroke. That's what happened to Helen, I said quietly. Rebecca's jaw tightened. And these supplements. She opened the heart health bottle. This should be tested, but if I had to guess, these contain oleander extract or something similar. Toxic at high doses. Causes cardiac arrhythmia that looks like natural heart failure in elderly patients. Detective Kowalski wrote that down. Would you be willing to provide expert testimony? Absolutely. They left with evidence bags full of pills and papers. Rebecca made tea, real tea, and the 3 of us sat in silence. Grandpa, Olivia said finally. Grandma saved your life. You both did, I said. If you hadn't found that note in my book, if you hadn't overheard that phone call, if you hadn't trusted your instincts, I couldn't finish. Rebecca gripped my hand. Mom would be so proud of Olivia. Over the next 36 hours, we waited. I stayed away from windows. I didn't answer the door. Natalie texted twice on Tuesday. Hope you're feeling better, and let me know if you need anything. And I responded with brief, friendly messages. Much better. Thanks and will do. Wednesday morning, Detective Morrison called. We're bringing her in this afternoon. We've got warrants for her house in Duncan, her car, and her phone records. The toxicology report on those supplements came back fast-tracked. The heart health pills contain cardiac glycosides at toxic levels. The sleep aids contain high-dose benzodiazepines. The joint support pills contain warfarin at dangerous doses. These weren't helping anyone. They were killing them slowly. What do you need from me? Nothing yet. Stay safe. We'll call you after we bring her in. At 4:17 p.m., my phone rang. Detective Morrison. We have her in custody. She lawyered up immediately, but we found everything. Her place in Duncan had documents related to 6 different elderly victims across BC and Alberta. Files on each of them, financial records, forged documents. She kept trophies, photographs, personal items. Mr. Fletcher. She had a photo of Helen's wedding ring. I felt sick. What happens now? She's being charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of attempted murder, including you, multiple counts of fraud and forgery. We're working with Alberta RCMP on their cases, and we're petitioning to exhume Helen's body for toxicology testing. How long will that take? Weeks, possibly months. But Mr. Fletcher, even without that, we have enough to ensure she never hurts anyone else. The exhumation was approved in May. Helen's tissue samples tested positive for cardiac glycosides, consistent with oleander poisoning. The Crown charged Natalie Warren, legally Nicole Margaret Westwood, with 5 counts of first-degree murder, including Helen. Her trial started in September 2025. I testified. Rebecca testified. Olivia testified, explaining how she'd overheard the phone call that started the investigation. The families of the 4 men in Alberta testified. The evidence was overwhelming. In November, the jury found her guilty on all counts. The judge called her crimes calculated, callous, and predatory. She was sentenced to life in prison, with no possibility of parole for 25 years. She'll be 66 when she's eligible, the same age Helen was when Natalie killed her. I sold the house in Oak Bay. Too many ghosts. I moved to Vancouver to be closer to Rebecca and Olivia. I bought a condo downtown with a view of the harbor. I go to a different grief support group now, one that's been thoroughly vetted. I'm in therapy. I'm learning to live with the guilt of not believing Helen when she tried to warn me. But I'm also learning to live again. Olivia comes by twice a week. We cook dinner together. She's teaching me to use Instagram so I can follow her posts. Last week she made me watch a documentary about forensic accounting and said maybe she wants to study criminology when she goes to university. Because of Grandma, she said. Because she taught me to trust my gut and write everything down. There are lessons here, and I share them with anyone who'll listen. First, trust your instincts. Helen knew something was wrong months before she died, but she doubted herself because Natalie was so convincing. If something feels off, it probably is. Don't dismiss your own discomfort. Second, verify everything. When someone offers to help with financial matters or legal documents, confirm it independently. Call your lawyer. Call your bank. Take someone you trust to appointments. Don't sign anything you don't understand, and don't sign anything you're being rushed into. Third, protect your documents and your access. Never give someone complete control of your finances or legal affairs unless you've known them for years and they've been vetted by people you trust. If someone pushes for power of attorney quickly, ask yourself why they're in such a hurry. Fourth, be suspicious of isolation. Natalie had been slowly separating me from my friends and my daughter. You don't need to bother Rebecca with this. Gordon seems tired. Maybe skip the yacht club this week. You should rest instead of going to church. Abusers isolate their victims. Stay connected to your community. Fifth, document everything. Helen's detailed letter and evidence saved my life and brought a murderer to justice. If you're worried about someone, write down dates, times, specific incidents. Take photos. Tell someone you trust. Create a paper trail. Sixth, listen to children and young people. Olivia saw what the adults around me missed. She wasn't biased by social niceties or fear of being rude. She trusted her observations. Adults, especially elderly adults, are often too polite to question someone who seems helpful. Children don't have that filter yet. Listen to them. Seventh, never stop taking your real medication without a doctor's supervision, and always verify that your medication is what it's supposed to be. Check the pills against photos online. Compare them to previous prescriptions. If they look different, ask your pharmacist. Eighth, know the warning signs of elder financial abuse. Someone rushing to establish power of attorney, sudden changes to wills or bank accounts, isolation from family, unexplained health decline, missing money or property, forged signatures, new friends who take control of daily life. If you see these signs in a loved one, act immediately. And finally, know that it's okay to ask for help. I was embarrassed that I'd been taken in by someone like Natalie. I felt stupid. I didn't want to admit I'd been vulnerable, but asking for help saved my life. There's no shame in being targeted by a predator. The shame belongs to them alone. Helen used to say that the best way to honor someone you love is to learn from them. I'm learning. I'm teaching. I'm speaking at senior centers about financial fraud. I've helped the RCMP develop educational materials about elder abuse. I've written to legislators about stronger protections and mandatory background checks for professional caregivers. And I'm grateful. Grateful for 43 years with Helen. Grateful for Rebecca's love and support. Grateful for Olivia's courage and intelligence. Grateful that Helen was smart enough and brave enough to leave me evidence when she knew time was running out. Every Tuesday, I visit Helen's grave with fresh flowers. I tell her about my week. I tell her that I'm okay now. I tell her thank you, because she saved me twice. Once when she married me and made me the happiest man in Victoria, and once when she died and left me the truth. I'm 69 years old. I have good years left. I'm not going to waste them. I'm going to spend them making sure no one else loses someone the way I lost Helen. Because the best revenge against evil isn't anger or bitterness. It's living well, loving fiercely, and protecting each other. Evil hates documentation. Evil hates questions. Evil hates being watched. And most of all, evil hates it when we stand together, when we trust our instincts, when we refuse to be silenced, or isolated, or ashamed. Helen taught me that. Olivia reminded me. And now I'm teaching everyone who will listen. If this story sounds familiar, if you recognize yourself or a loved one in any part of it, please don't wait. Talk to someone. Document your concerns. Contact the police or adult protective services or an elder law attorney. It's not paranoia. It's not being rude. It's survival. And if you're a young person worried about a grandparent or elderly relative, trust yourself. You're not overreacting. You might be the only one who sees the truth. Speak up. Write it down. Tell adults who will listen. You might save a life. I know this because a 13-year-old girl saved mine.